It's 5 o'clock. Let us get started. Welcome to the committee meeting of the whole for January the 6th. We hope you all had a very good Christmas and holiday. You had family around, and I hope you weren't like me and overindulged like I usually do, but nevertheless. We will acknowledge that we are located on the traditional Blackfoot Confessory territory. And are there any additions or to the agenda, or can we adopt it? I'll take a motion.
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Okay. A motion to adopt the agenda. All in favor? I'm assuming you're in favor, Kent. Just nod at us. There we go. Okay. We do have one delegation, Blaine Jensen, who is the president of the Cardston District Historical Society, and has been for quite some time, and is doing a fantastic job. The trouble is, if you're too good, Blaine, they just leave you there, and you're there pretty much for life. So if you want to just come on up here and tell us what you're going to tell us, I guess.
There, I can see Gary now. Well, thank you very much for this time, and thank you for the introduction. And I'm not here today to ask for anything other than support, moral support. And I've got some action items at the end I just will encourage you to participate with. Just a reminder of our mission. The mission of the Historical Society is to preserve, collect, share, and tell stories about Cardston and District. And so that we can tell the story of our unique heritage and background. And so we've established a long-term vision. And this is, I'll get into how we've done this, but the vision is in 20 years that we will be seen as a historical society, as a dynamic, inclusive hub where history connects individuals, inspires individuals, and empowers our community. So that's fairly ambitious. And that there's a reason why we want to be ambitious. Now, we'll get into that. Currently, as you know, we're a nonprofit organization. We just celebrated our 50th anniversary. So in 1975 was when we started. And at the mid-80s, the town agreed to rent the courthouse to us because when the courthouse ceased to be a municipal building for the province, it was given to the town, and then they agreed to rent it to the society for $1 a year. And then in 1997, the town approached us, or we approached the town. I can't figure out which one had happened, but there was an agreement to sell the courthouse to the society for $1. And thank you, Gary Selk. It was your loony that actually bought the courthouse for the society.
You own it.
Who knew?
So, thank you. Since then, we've had a great partnership with the town. And that partnership includes funding that the town applies for our staffing in the summertime. We have one 4-month position, that is the senior interpreter, and two 2-month positions. So they start in May with the 4-month position, and then they're just for 2 months. They're usually high school, university students. We have had community members as well, and we love to have the community members. But in the last few years, it's mainly students that have been doing this. The town also owns the card home. So the card home is really under your purview. It's a historical building. And so that's owned by the town, but all the artifacts and the programming inside it, we do that. So it's a partnership we have with that. So we've had a long partnership with the town. The town has been very, very supportive of a lot of things that the society has done. Our board has 6 elected members and 3 executives. The president, vice president, and treasurer, president, vice president, treasurer, and the secretary. Should we say 5 there? Get my counting right. And so that's the executive, and then we have 6 board members, 3 elected for 2-year terms, and they alternate. So we have 3 one year and 3 the next year. We also have appointed members to the board, 1 from the town. Thank you very much. And there, yes,
Yeah.
there he is right there. We're thankful to have
That's Winder.
Councillor Winder. Yes, about to call you by your first name, but I'll leave that to Councillor Winder. We've had Tim Cork has sat on the board, and I believe Gary has sat on the board years ago.
Many.
Yes.
Many.
And so we have 1 from the town, 1 from the county, which we don't see very often. We have good support from the town. And we have just created a new position for the Blood Reserve. And so we are searching for a member from the reserve to sit on the board. And that's in accordance with our desire to expand the First Nations representation in the museum. We start our tours off and we recognize the territory we're in. We also start our tours off telling about First Nations, especially the Kainai. And so that's one of our expansion that we're doing, and we're just working through who that's going to be right now. We have 3,000 artifacts and many more thousand archival documents. I was saying earlier in a conversation that we have more archives and documents and artifacts than we can display. And we could double or triple the size of what we've got and display fill that with our displays. So we have to now have rotation. You've probably seen in the past that our displays have been fairly static, but that has not been true in the last 3 years. We are rotating our artifacts out and telling the stories of those artifacts. We also are doing 4 to 6 lectures annually that are, we call them stories that inspire, because there's so many stories we can tell. And so we have, this last year, we've looked at inspiring women and had several presentations about women who provide such inspiring actions and activities in the community that we thought that needs to be told. So these are things we're trying to do, and we're expanding what those are going to do. Annually, we do have special exhibits, and we change the exhibits up so people can't say, oh, well, I was here 20 years ago and I saw the same thing. We want that to be, well, last year it was different, and this year we want to come back again. And we've started that. We've done this now for the last 3 years, had new exhibits every year. The town of Cardston provides approximately $10,000 a year in support of the society. Thank you very much. That is a lifeline for us. We do fundraising, and we apply for grants, and we are searching for additional funding from other places. And so probably a little more than half of the funding comes from the town. We thank you for that. We have introduced, rather than a donation, we now have admission fees. Our society has membership fees. And we are trying to, and we have sales of books and other things that we raise funds for. We also have books and publications. We're just going to come out with 2 new publications. One about the storyline of Cardston. We don't have any books that give the storyline of Cardston. At least we haven't seen them. We've got the 3 volumes of Chief Mountain Country that has lots of great stories and materials in it, but not a storyline, not a book that someone can sit down, okay, this is what they did to find the location, why they came, these are the events that have happened. So we're about to do a publish that book. And we have other small publications about the trek from tracing the trail from Immigration Gap to Cardston itself. It's been marked out, but nobody has anything that says this is where they came, because they didn't get here in the afternoon. It took them 2 days to get here from the Immigration Gap. So anyway, there's extra things we're doing. We're hoping that brings in little revenue as well. We have just completed a 5-year strategic plan that I've given to you. It shows that we have accomplished about 80% of that plan. Now, I'm doing strategic plans at colleges and universities in my career. That size of accomplishment is not very common. And for a nonprofit volunteer organization to achieve 80% of strategic goals, I've got to give credit to the society and what they've done to do this. So that finished, we wanted to look at what do we do in the future. And we've challenged ourselves. That challenge is huge. We said, let's see what we want to be in 20 years. What does 20 years look like? And these are big, hairy ideas. And that document I've given to you as well. Some of these ideas are very aspirational. They are things that is a wish list. We really want to do that, but if we don't have that, we're just going to keep the home, as I said earlier to someone, otherwise we just keep the home fires burning and we just stay the way we are. In the next 20 years, we want to be a bigger part of this community. We want to have more engagement, and we want to have the stories and the history of Cardston and district be part of who we are. We want to be part of the tourism. We want to draw in people and be places where people say, well, you know, if you go to Cardston, you can see this. And they tell some stories here. They have these kind of events. And how can we partner? This is part of us partnering with the town, with tourism in the area, with the county, with the reserve. What can we do to bring all this together so we can capitalize on this internal tourism that is happening since political events have happened in the world? To do that, we have looked at what we are doing, what our main goals are, and how do these fit into with deliverable outcomes that are 3, 5, and 20 years out. So we do have 20-year goals, 10, 5, and 3. This now has turned into a rolling strategic plan. What a rolling strategic plan is, one that you don't have to go back and do like what we just did last year. Say, okay, we did 5 years, now what are you going to do? It's rolling. Every year we will look at the 3-year plan and say, okay, how much did we accomplish? And does that change anything down the path? Has the world changed? So this will be an ongoing 3-year rolling plan. And you have the vision statements that are there to wrap up and then open to questions if you'd like. One of the biggest goals that we have is the organizational to support the programming. Our goal is to be a thriving, professionally run museum that has sustainable revenues, that also has full-time staff. Now that may not be full-time year-round, but it would be perhaps somebody that is employed 2 or 3 days a week for the year. But at least they've got time and focus. Maybe it's a partnership position. Maybe it's something we can work with local tourism, maybe with the town. We don't know. We don't know what the answers are right now. But we see ourselves having some full-time staff. We see ourselves expanding our facilities. We have more artifacts and stories to tell that would make it very dynamic. So if we had something, a larger facility, that we could partner with someone, we can not only fill it, but we can also fill it with activities and partner with organizations and have another activity place. We don't think we're going into the construction, so we'd be looking at some existing. But anyway, that's a big, hairy idea we have. We think it's possible.
Well, thank you very much for Mr. Jensen. I just got a couple of things. I was on the board before. Now you're talking about a full-time staff. Have you considered sharing with the neighboring communities to the east? Maybe a day and a half for this, a day and a half for that, since, on a rotating basis. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. A possibility that a full-time staffer could handle all three of the museums, because I think they're all going through the same thing you are. Mm-hmm. My sister's on the board down in Raymond, and I see her down there quite often. And they're all the same problem. And the second problem, maybe not problem, is how are you doing for recruiting younger members? Because you're talking 20 years, and a lot of us won't be here for 20 years.
Exactly. The idea of partnering with the towns about a staff member is not something we've discussed, so thank you very much for that. I think that's a viable thing we can explore. We've explored working with them jointly with several, like software and our collections and making them come together. So that's something we can add to that. Yeah. Youth and the membership drive is a key to that. Yeah. And so we are trying to find ways to get younger people even from younger than 60 would be fine.
If you don't know on council, membership would be $25, is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
It's an easy 25. You can take your family in there anytime you want, which is kind of neat if especially if you've got grandkids that are interested in that stuff. Mayor.
So first of all, thank you. You and your committee have done a fantastic job over the years that I've been on council. You've been on your board, and you really have done some fantastic work. So thank you. We'll start with that. Just a couple of questions. Does Westwind, so one of your education and programming, you've got develop school partnership for curriculum relevant programs. So I had just written down, does Westwind use your facility? I know that they do because my kids have gone there over the years. And do they donate when their kids come?
Yes.
Okay, so they are paying something.
They are paying. When the pandemic was around, they lost some funding, so we now are fundraising so that pays for their visits. Okay. So both the separates or the alternative school as well as the regular school do come to us. They pay a fee. It's a nominal fee. I think it's $2 or $3 a person.
Yes, right.
When we do programming.
And then the other, sorry, if I can. So then the last question is, so you're talking about partnering and, building a bigger facility or something like that. I just can't help but think of the Remington Center, because to me, I think the Remington Center is underused, I would say, the majority of the year. Summer, of course, it's incredibly busy. And I will say, they are really working hard on creating year-round programming. I just got a phone call today to help with one that they're doing. I'm just wondering if they wouldn't be a great partner somehow with I mean, there's nothing like working with the government. That's lovely. But you can get grants and things, and I just think because you're both in building communities and showcasing historical facts, that might be a good fit somehow. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. Just a
Yes.
thought.
Well, and we have good connections with Jensen there,
Fantastic.
and we are there with them in several events that they do
Yes.
as well,
Right.
and that we'll explore that. I think
It's a
the
thought.
exploration of that is it's a mixed blessing working with a provincial organization because
Agreed.
of their
Way more cut and
bureaucracy.
dry.
Yeah.
Final, I promise. FCSS funding.
Yes.
So have you looked into getting FCSS, so Family Community Support Service
Absolutely.
funding for hiring people or running events, or because all of that could go around it as long as it's for the betterment of mental, social, family beings, you can get funding from them. And
I know that.
yes, I sat on that board for a long time, and we have Councillor Smith is on it now, and they have intakes twice a year, and things that we have funded over the years definitely would fit into some of the stuff that you do. And so that's a big pot that's in our community. And so Caitlin, you would reach out to our employee, and she also handles that, and she has all your information. She can tell you how it all works and all the things. She does a great job. So I'm just throwing
Thank
that
you.
out to you as well.
Thank you.
You bet.
Councillor Selk, then Councillor Smith.
So Blaine, I just wanted to say after reviewing your package, how impressed I was with how much thought that you and your group have put into this strategic plan and the fact that you are looking well down the road. This is more of a comment than a question. Maybe you could get together with the Friends of the Remington Museum and show them how to do a strategic plan. I'm just saying.
Spicy. Smile and wave.
Because that's fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Smith.
I too was really impressed by your the detail that you have in your strategic planning. I thought it was so comprehensive. It was very impressive. What I really wanted to say, though, in addition to the FCSS part, was I purchased your volume 3 of the Chief Mountain at the Community Awareness. And I thought, $20? This is a beautiful book for $20, just the binding of it. And then I went through it, and I couldn't believe all the archaeological pictures and everything. It's a fascinating book, and I loved it. So I think you undersell it. I think you should be charging more for it. And the other question is, has anybody else noticed that the card home roof is getting a bit saggy? Have you had any comments about any of that? Or maybe it's not true. I don't know.
There has been some comments. We did have some inspections done. The town did some work on that, and
Okay.
it seems to be all right.
Just maybe it was the lights. It was just, yeah.
I think
Okay.
if
Yeah.
Santa Claus
I
gets
had
up
some
there-
people commenting to me about it, and so I wondered about it. But yeah, maybe
We're
Santa
not
Claus,
getting
so-
any leaking in there, and interior, it doesn't seem to be sagging, and so
Good news.
we've and the trees that have been trimmed back now and taken out, some of them were crawling underneath the foundation of the building,
Okay.
so that will help us there.
Mhm.
So the town has been quite diligent in this. So
Good news.
Councillor Johnson.
Thanks for being here, Blaine. And I'm a numbers nerd, so just a couple of
Good
questions.
for numbers.
Volume of visitors per year. Maybe I didn't read it closely enough. Does it have anything like that in here, or can you give us an idea of what the visitor count would be for a year at the card home? And has there been an increase over the last few years?
Since we've come out of the pandemic and the tourism piece, the numbers did drop. So we did fall below probably 1,000 visitors but we are back beyond 1,000 visitors now. We're closer to 1,500 visitors a year.
Thank
So
you.
the numbers are good numbers, and because we're charging admission now, and admission is higher than we budgeted for, so that's.
Any other comments? Well, thank you very much for presenting that. We
May I leave
appreciate
with-
all the hard work that goes on over there. I know some of those people have been on that board forever and ever, and you only been there just forever, but not forever and ever. But you're working on it. Thank you very much.
Can I leave you with 3 challenges?
Well, I had one question too. Digitizing, how's it coming?
Digitizing.
I know what Dave Edmonds did a ton of it, but I just wonder what's happened since then.
Last year we just finished all the newspapers, and we have them back from the 1890s to date,
Awesome.
all digitized now. And we thank the people in the Family History Center with their digitizing machines,
Great.
and they did a lot there for us.
Great. That's a good answer.
So
And you had- yeah,
my
go ahead.
challenges are help join us personally in the society. We'd love to have you as a member of the society. And as Councillor Court said, it's only $25. And secondly, let's partner in expanding tourism. What can we do together in expanding tourism? And if you can help us finding volunteers and partners, as you suggested, even with funding, those 3 things is what we would really like partnership with. So if you know someone that likes history, I would like to have their name and phone number, please. We are on a membership drive to double our members. We're right into that. Every board member is asked to come to the next board meeting with 2 new members.
You can
So-
actually go right online and do it right there online. You don't have to find anybody. You just go online and pay your
Yes.
$25 and away you
The
go.
personal touch is always the best.
Yes,
I like
it
to
is.
do
It
that.
is. I agree.
But you can go to our website, cardstonhistoricalsociety.org, and you can purchase your membership there.
Done.
Thank you.
I did that last summer, so.
Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jill.
I'm gonna wait, because there's an item.
Oh, he's
on
gonna
the
stick
agenda
around for a while.
let's-
Okay.
The downtown revitalization.
Okay, that'll be a good one too.
Remodeling here.
Okay, while he's doing that, let's go to the CCW meeting of November, what was it, November 4th. Has there been any things that are standing out that are not right or incorrect? If not, we'll take a motion. The mayor will make a motion to,
I make a motion to adopt the minutes of our November 4th, 2025 meeting.
all in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Now we're gonna get into a lot of information the next little while, I'm thinking. The first 12, we'll start with the wastewater plant. That's always the exciting one. And if you're an engineer, you probably understood everything that was in there. If you're not, most of us just go, what? But anyhow.
So, thank you, Councillor Court. Councillor Winder, for your benefit, I'm gonna share the screen here. And I wasn't wanting to go through, I mean, I uploaded, I think, about 600 pages of backgrounder for you for this, so I have it narrowed down to about 12 pages on my sheet that I wanted to touch on. So I know it's a bit of a creak in the neck for you two, but I'll also put it back here. I just wanted to get everyone, all of us on the same page as to the status of 3, we'll call them fairly major projects. 2 being capital in the works and 1 we need to decide the next step. So some of you are new and then we haven't really done an update for a while. These are important projects. So I wanted to start with the wastewater treatment plant. This has been the whole last term. So this has been years in development, and we've seen the projected capital costs go from 7 million to 26 million to 16 million to 26 million, and now we're trying to get down to 20 million. This is a big capital project, and it's complicated. But I did want to talk about I just want to highlight a couple of in the reports I gave you, just to make sure that you kind of understand what we're doing, where it's at administratively, what the next steps are. There's been slow but encouraging progress on some of these items. But as you can see on this first one on the screen, and I know it's a ways away for you guys, but it's just a simple site plan. One of the things that's going to happen up there is we were hoping initially that all of the renovation could be housed inside the existing building. And the further we got down the design road, the less likely that looked like it could be. We're going to have to move what's called the secondary treatment, the MABR reactors. We're going to need to move them just outside the building and then send it back into what's called the clarifiers. So if any of you who have had the privilege of taking that tour, when you first walk in, you're at the headworks section. So it's the screens and the grinders and it's all that. Then you're into the secondary treatment, which is now RBC, those big rotating wheels. Then those big pits at the end of the clarifiers. So the current plan is that everything will continue to come in at the headworks. It'll be replaced with new headworks. It will then go to the we'll go to the south into the new MABR pits, which is replacing the big RBCs. Those go away. And then it will go back into the clarifiers and everything else is the same from there. So there's a couple of reasons for that. One is in order to accommodate these MABR, this media, we have to get the pits in the secondary treatment have to be much deeper than they currently are. So the RBC pits aren't that deep actually. Just half of that wheel has to go in there. For these MABR pits, they have to be substantially deeper. When they did geotechnical analysis around that building, they did not like what they were finding under that building as far as holding that much effluent weight and staying without cracking and staying sealed for 50 years or whatever the expectancy is. So they'd like to move that to the outside. I can imagine that creates a few questions from, let's say, neighbors that live close to the plant, like maybe Councillor Winder. And we'll do some discussion with the neighborhood on that. It is secondary treatment, so it actually doesn't carry the let's call it the fragrance that primary treatment carries. And we think we're going to be able to handle that fairly well. Most new plants in Alberta are outdoors. The secondary treatment's outside. And I think that's going to be okay, but we're going to do some work on that. So I just wanted to show you that.
No, you're talking another building for the MABR?
So it won't be in a building, but it will just be outside to the south of that building.
All right.
There will be a small building, which is all the blowers.
So it'll be all fenced off and it'll be all.
Yeah, and there'll be a road around it for access for servicing, and there'll be a small blower building at the end of it all. So what's happening in its simplest form is RBC is a mechanical system that turns very heavy wheels covered in aerobic bacteria into the effluent, where that bacteria eats what's in the effluent. And that's what's been failing. MABR there's no moving parts. They are large cassettes of silicone media. And the bacteria grows on that media, and air in different varying amounts is pushed up through the media to feed the aerobic bacteria. So the bacteria stays submerged 24/7. It doesn't come up for air. But we feed it air from below, is how that works. And so we will be able to get rid of all of those mechanical parts, all those big motors that turn those RBCs, and we replace them with a series of blowers that are into the system. So that's currently where things are at. I wanted to show, and this is a little bit tricky to see for sure.
So that's going to be quite a substantial saving in energy then.
So we are still projecting 50% costs to run this facility versus what we're paying today. So we're paying about $250,000 in energy costs to run that facility right now. And we expect that to be half based on getting rid of those big motors. One of the other things that happens too is and again, these things I don't understand, and then they make sense once you understand them, is when you go to an aerated system, so we're inserting tons of air all day long into these media. If we kept them in the building, our air handling was not sufficient anymore. We were creating that much more humidity in that building that it was never set up to handle, and the deterioration of the building would expedite. And so all the aeration will be outside, so it doesn't impact the building as much. This, and I'll see if I can shrink it down enough that it's useful to talk about, but this is on page 18 if you ever wanted to look at it, but it's essentially the process. And like I mentioned earlier on, the headworks process is still very similar. It comes in, it's solids are screened out, it gets down to things that the bacteria can handle. That's all moved out. The bacteria eat on the effluent. It goes into clarifiers. Any sludge or any remaining dead bacteria separate, and we skim them off and we ship all that out. So the process is still relatively similar, just a very different technology. Still quite optimistic about the MABR technology. We will be the first municipal plant in Western Canada to use this technology.
Wow.
And that's what got us the $5 million from Emissions Reductions Alberta. So, while we are pioneering this a little bit, it also came with a pretty good check to help de-risk it a little bit for us. So that's been a major blessing there. But I'm not even going to try and explain some of this stuff because I don't know it well enough. But have a chance to go through it. And again, if you've been through the plant, the process is really similar. It's that secondary treatment that changes. We're still optimistic about it. So here's where this project's at. We've had to wait on a couple of things that have now come through. We have some big decisions, not decisions so much, but agreements to make. When they did 60% design, they put a new cost to it, and it came back in way more than we wanted it to. And so they're doing what's called value engineering as well. One of the reasons why is Alberta Environment, now, you know, they've got their job to do and they need to regulate, but they make things really expensive and really difficult. I don't even think they would deny that if they were in the room. So they demand redundancy on every component of a treatment plant. So they want 100% redundancy across the board. And that comes with the price tag of millions of dollars to do that. And so what the engineers are working on now is saying, well, if we can reduce the redundancy on this, we can mitigate any risk until we can get things back online or fix things. Or we can look at a phase 2 in 10 years from now that will put that redundancy in place. But in the meantime, we're going to see if we can not have to do that. So that's been a lot of the value engineering to this point, is trying to get that number down. I'd like to see that number land at about 20 million. I think that we can handle that financially at 20 million. We have the Alberta Water Wastewater Grant for 51% of the project. We have the $5 million from ERA. And we have a $5 million interest-free loan from FCM if needed, and we have $3 million in reserves for this project. So if we can get to 20 million, we won't even need all the 5 million, thankfully, because I don't want to take it on if we don't need it by all means. So we're trying to get down to that number, but the fact of the matter is, until we get to tender, we won't have a good number. They can estimate all they want. They can guess at what the contract's going to come in. But until we get to tender, we don't know a good number.
And when is that?
So the goal for tendering right now is March. Okay. So the goal to get it to tender is March. What we were waiting on, which we got last week, was that letter from Alberta Environment saying, yes, we're okay with this technology, proceed. As long as you do it under the standard and you stamp it, everything's good to go. So our funders were all waiting for that letter. And I got it a couple of weeks ago. So that's been a huge relief. Today I was spending some time, and I'm actually meeting with Alberta Transportation. We have a virtual meeting on Thursday. One of the challenges we have is the technology, the MABR, the cassettes, the media. It's a massive lead time. They're going to actually be built in Ireland, is where they're getting built, and then they're shipped over. And then after that, the company's going to be stocking here in Western Canada. So that's been a huge thing. We've had to kind of forge those trails too, so we had support. And the Associated, our engineer, needs some information, technical data from DuPont, who makes the product, so that they can finish this to get it to tender. And DuPont is saying, until we get a contract for all this, we're not going to release the technical data. So they've got us most of the way that they can get it mostly designed, but they're saying the last stuff comes with a price. And so I have a contract on my desk right now for the DuPont media to get that going, which sounds straightforward, but it isn't. One of the challenges is that with our grants, all of our grants, they will not generally fund things that did not go through a competitive bid process. we're looking to sole source the media because it's, what do I want here? Because it's proprietary, right? It's a technology from this company that's proprietary, and so we can't put it out for tender. So my meeting on Thursday with Alberta Transportation, who's in charge of the Alberta Wastewater Grant, is to say, look, and I met with Associated this morning, and here's our strategy with this is, and DuPont, by the way, has been really good. They came back to us and said, okay, you issue a contract for 100% of the media. It's 2.5 million, by the way, 2.49 million or something. And they said, we will proceed with all the engineering and technical data you need to get that so you can get to tender. If at tender the price comes back that you have to put a halt in this, all we're after is the engineering money. We'll give you the opportunity to cancel for convenience, which is really rare to get the opportunity to cancel for convenience. So they've put in a clause in our contract to say, we'll allow you to terminate for convenience. If the tenders come back that it's not a sustainable project, not viable project, I should say, we can't do it. So today we were just tidying that up, and then I'm meeting with transportation, and then we'll meet with Emissions Reduction Alberta as well to say, look, we're going to, we'd like to sign the contract so that we can complete all the technical information. And then what happens, and some of you may be very familiar with this language, we would novate the remaining contract to the general contractor. So the rest, so if it's 2.475 million, we'll say we may be paying the 75,000, but then the general contractor, once awarded, we will be paying them for the rest of it, and the contractor's paying the manufacturer. So we would novate it over, but we need to get that going so we can get the technical data and get them built. They figure they're going to be a year by the time they're built and shipped. But I'm trying to keep that moving, but I can't risk a $2.5 million piece not being included in our grant anymore. It would be sick not to get 75 cent dollars on that like we have for everything else. So I'm working through that right now, and then I hope to have all that cleared with transportation Thursday. And if transportation gives us the okay, then ERA, then we'll sign the contract with DuPont and get us that much closer to tendering. So there's, in a nutshell, where the wastewater plant project's at.
Mayor?
So once it goes to tender in March, then what?
So we are hoping, now this is there's fear's too strong of a word. There's a concern about qualified contractors that have availability in Alberta for this type of work right now.
Okay.
And so we're hoping, Associated, they actually have a list of people they hope bid on this. You know, people they've worked with before that do this job well, that understand it. So we're hoping for 3 really qualified bids on the project. You know, so we have a good competition. We know we're getting good value for the price. And
You don't make a decision on those, right?
Associated will include us in that.
Okay.
For sure. Yeah.
I'm just saying, I don't know if we want to be a part of that. Like in
Yeah,
the sense of like,
We will
what
be
do we know?
included,
Yeah.
but we are paying Associated
Right,
to do
okay.
construction management here. They're responsible for the construction management and then the commissioning at the end. So I'm sure they will ask our opinion, but they're going to weigh everything out. They're going to bring us a recommendation, that kind of thing. So yes, the hope is that once we get that, now we have a price that we have a firm price. We know what we're dealing with now. And so now we sit down with funders and with FCM, and we need exactly this, and we need exactly this. Keep in mind in the dollar that we have right now, estimates, there's huge contingencies in these numbers. Just the contingencies would get us down to a budget we can manage. But the engineers get nervous and they put, large scale contingencies, and we've probably got $4 million in contingencies in this thing right now. And the only way you get rid of those is to go to tender. It's the only way you can eliminate your contingency estimates, right? So that's the goal.
So finish. So keep going. So tender, find out how much it is.
Yeah.
Talk to our money people,
We can
make sure
manage
we're
it.
good, right?
Then start.
Then giddy up.
Yeah.
Reasonably, if in fact it will be according to when the builder can
So
start, has the
that'll be-
window.
That's right. So if they're on major projects in Edmonton or major projects in the oil patch or major projects, so that's who we're competing with this type of construction. We're competing with the oil patch. We're competing with the city of Edmonton and Calgary and Red Deer and Medicine Hat. These are big capital projects.
But you, sorry if I can, but you also have brought up to council previously that when push comes to shove, we really need this to be a fall, not a
Yes.
spring, according
Correct.
to our levels.
Yeah, so we have to, we have to take half the plant out of commission at a time. And that needs to be done late fall and through the winter. But there is a lot of work that can be done during the summer here, like getting all the MABR infrastructure outside done over the whole summer. And then we have to do this at our low flow season. We can't let this carry into next May. Right? Because then our flows get too high to run on half a plant.
Councillor Kinley.
I was just gonna ask, what is
Councillor
our
Sucker.
risk, like, you're saying, like, what's the kind of cost that we'd be facing if it didn't work out? Like, saying with DuPont's, like, you know, you're saying the engineering or something, that if we wanted to get out, like, but we still have to pay that fee.
Yeah, so what our agreement is tentatively, we're going to try and sign this in the next couple of days. What the tentative agreement is that any of the engineering they do on our behalf to get us all the technical data we need, we would pay for that.
And you probably have no idea.
They estimated at $75,000
Okay.
high end.
Gotcha.
They've given us that number. They estimate at the top end 75 grand. And then if this drags on a while before we make a decision, and they've started to incur product and they've started to incur some labor, we would be on the hook for that. But the hope here is that if we can get that technical data, say in February, and this thing goes to tender in March, they don't have many other costs incurred.
And I was just gonna add, like, I think I've mentioned this too, but what doesn't environment and transportation understand, like, that this is the first of many coming down the line, and it's like, why are they making it so dang difficult and expensive? Like, when every municipality is going to be behind us here. Like, I just don't understand. I guess that's government, but
It's that balance of, you have environments saying we're not going to take on any risk for this either.
But then is the risk not we start dumping in the
But-
creeks? Like,
So there's that risk.
that's what I'm saying.
They have, and again, I'm not trying to speak ill of them. They have the best of both worlds. Where
Right.
they're saying, we demand this type of infrastructure. So what they're saying is the new normal for a community of 3,700 is north of 20 million.
Which is
for a
not
renovation on sewer plant, which is obscene.
right.
It's ridiculous. But that's what they're saying they demand. But they're also saying at the same time, we got to make sure that there's not a lot of risk in this environmentally, but you are also obligated to maintain your current authorizations all the way through that, even if you start failing.
Kind of like we're the guinea pig in this. And like,
We are, and that's the only reason this really was going to work is the ERA money allowed us to say, okay,
yeah,
we're de-risking it a little bit financially.
yeah.
Now, one of the risks is, and they're right to do this, by the way, transportation, who manages the water wastewater grant, has said, if this doesn't work, you cannot apply to us for what makes it work. So we're going to give you 51% of this one, but if it doesn't work, you can't come to us when you have to build something different to fix it. Now, no one feels that that's a huge risk right now.
Yeah.
Everyone's pretty comfortable. And again, we have an engineering firm stamping the process design.
Yeah.
They're saying, we've run everything on this. We've done our due diligence. This gets you the results you need.
Okay.
And environment is now saying, we agree with that.
Okay.
Just took a long time.
Just to further what you say about the number of communities, when you and I met how many years ago, there were 35 communities lined up, all wondering what the heck is going on. Now, we have a wastewater plant that's costing us more. If you got a lagoon, Raymond just spent $8 million to expand their lagoons.
Right.
But you know what the lagoon does? Just drive by the pothole coulee on the way to Lethbridge when the wind's blowing just right. So it's nice to have this, but we're paying for it for sure.
Yeah.
Councillor Selk.
It's kind of in conjunction with Councillor Kinley, since the Alberta Environment and Alberta Transportation make the regulations so onerous that it's so costly. My attitude is, well, you can either pay for it or we'll let the turds run.
So
Literally.
we have a reasonably close neighbor that has taken that approach.
Mm-hmm.
And I always talk to their CAO to see how that's going. And so far it's been just a lot of bluffing on both sides, I guess I would say. So I understand where you're coming from, Councillor, I really do. I'm hoping we land in this where we have $3 to $4 million in the game. And that the province and feds, well, FCM, are covering 75–80% of it. I think it's going to be more difficult for the next guys because we got the $5 million from ERA.
Yeah.
ERA is not going to give it to the next guys. Right. So we were very fortunate to get that big chunk of change in this for sure.
Yeah.
So I don't want to dismiss it that we are at, if this thing comes in at 20 million, just for rough number, over 10 million from transportation. We're at 5 million from ERA. We've got 3 million, which puts us at 18 right now. So we're not, and we might have to borrow 2. It's not awful. It's not awful. We have been mitigated to a large degree, but sentiment on many levels, yeah, I would agree with your sentiment.
Is it 20 with the 60% with the contingencies?
It's sitting at like 24 and a half with contingencies.
So it could
right now. It
could
come
go
down
to 18, right? Okay,
It could.
cool.
Yeah.
Councillor Smith.
You've kind of already answered this. Just if the plan isn't viable, then what are the options? And I guess you covered that. Nelson.
And they're not great, Counselor. We can't keep doing what we're doing there now for 2 reasons.
Yeah, we need it.
One is that we can't buy parts, so we're manufacturing parts to fix the RBCs we currently have. We did buy some old RBCs years ago, and I mean a decade ago. Tabor changed all theirs out, and we bought them all from them. And so we were able to take all the usable pieces off of those over the years, and they're gone now. We've used them all. So it's not a sustainable system that we currently have, just from a repairs and an energy point of view. So we've got to do something.
The mayor, then Councillor Johnson, then we'll maybe start to wrap this up.
No, I think Councillor Court had brought this up, but just even at our Alberta Municipalities Conference, people were talking about us and this and waiting to see what this is going to look like for us and the cost and all the things, because many small communities, you can't afford, like, this is just an astronomical price and burden put on our taxpayers. So, I mean, and Councillor Court, you brought that up. We're being watched, and it is kind of nice being the first because of the extra money that we're looking at getting, but
As long as it's successful.
but that's with anything, right?
Might be going back to outhouses if we're not careful.
Just for what it's
Good
worth,
luck
I
with
don't
that.
want to suggest it because we're the first in Western Canada. This technology is broadly used across
Yes.
Scandinavia and UK.
Right.
So this is the norm there. And it's expected that it will become the norm here. That it will be what the new standard for wastewater facilities will be. So, but we do have tons of municipal examples in Scandinavia, Finland, Sweden. Climate is similar. And so that's been good to compare to.
Councillor Johnson.
So I guess what I'm hearing is you're really looking from us comfort level with the initial risk of 75,000 for
Yeah.
you to go ahead and do what you need to do.
Yeah.
That's what you're looking.
I mean,
The direction.
I was I'll have to bring the contracts when it's time to sign them, but I mean, my recommendation is that that's a risk we need to take to get this to tender sooner than later.
Sounds like we have no choice.
Yeah,
so.
I don't see a way around it.
Right.
And so I think that's what we need to do. And I think that's a mitigated risk on a $20 million project.
Yeah.
Okay, any other comments? Councillor Winder, you've been quiet. Have you got anything to say about it, or you're the neighbor, so
I was saying I am interested to see how this is going to affect someone very close to this area.
I mean, the heated swimming pool is an upside. They're not considering year round.
So what would be like the best case scenario of when stuff would be getting going then, Jeff? Or
So I would say, depending on the contractor, we can start in June is what would be ideal.
okay.
And then they would have enough of a season.
And that's doing some of the summer stuff that you talked about. Like there's a lot of stuff you could do during the summer before the fall build happens.
There's a massive amount of concrete work in this project. In fact, it's millions. When I looked at the breakdown, it's just massive amounts of concrete. And that kind of stuff would be great to be able to pour in September. You know, have all that done, and then we can get inside. For the winter.
Okay, that was fun.
Okay.
Let's try the golf course now.
Sure. Let me see what happens on the screen here there we go. This one's probably a little bit of a shorter discussion. We've had some of this discussion before. This project was designed and went to tender last fall. It came back well over budget. That was a result of a couple of things. One is we just didn't get a good quantity of bidders. The quantity of bidders was very, very low. I'm told in many of the disciplines there was only one. And then also there was some design features that when the bids came back drove the price up considerably. And So I've met with the general contractor on this. They're doing value engineering on this as well. Part of it was, and let me just go to, sorry, I'm going to scroll here, which, sorry. Promise I'll get there. Wrong page. Part of the issue was how the interior, here, this is the one I want. Part of the issue was how the interior ceiling and the exterior roof structure was designed. So just the roof structure, they figured came in over their estimates by almost $400,000. And part of that was this was going to be an open truss inside, so you could see all the mechanical. You see that in restaurants. You see it in a lot of buildings. So open mechanical system, open truss system, and then the insulation for the roof is actually on the roof deck on the outside, and then the roof membrane. That came in really, really expensive. And so in the value engineering that you're going to see on the next iteration is we've simply gone to a vaulted roof that'll be drywalled on the inside like a normal conventional home construction would be. And all the HVAC and everything can be buried up in those trusses. And that actually changes your costs a lot for fire suppression, for your HVAC and electrical. You have to conduit all your electrical, you have to conduit everything that's exposed, right? But if we can put it in the ceiling cavity with conventional truss system, then we don't have to do any of that. We expect just that one piece to pull capital down considerably. So there was a couple of other things that there was some millwork that we wanted to do, trophy cases and some things to tell the story of the course, which I still want to do. But those bids came back 6 figures just for what seemed like pretty straightforward millwork. And I know we've got people in the community with that kind of talent that we can engage after it's built to build us some trophy cases and build us some things like that. So we've stripped that out, we've taken that out, but it was pushing $100,000 just for millwork. So a few of those things I wanted to show just on page 27. So one of the other things that should change here, maybe eventually, there we go. One of the other challenges they ran into from a design point of view that's resulting in a lot of costs, and they explained this to me, and I apologize, I didn't grasp it all, but we have that entire south wall that's glass. And so with that comes tremendous design challenges on snow load and wind load. And I'm going to go out on a limb here that wind is going to be a factor on the south face of that building. And so when they got the bids back, the contractors that bid were terribly concerned about the risk in managing snow and wind load on an all glass front. And so they are looking at, while we still want it to be predominantly glass, they're looking for ways to put in some additional steel beams along the way. And that wall may differ from what you see there, which again is like 3 beams down the middle and the rest just glass. Window manufacturers got a little nervous. Everybody got a little nervous about 8-foot tall sheets of glass on with the wind there. Yeah. So that reflected in pricing as well. So those are some of the value engineering pieces that you're going to see coming out. Actually, you can see the open truss system in that picture below too, but that's going to go away. It'll be drywall. And so the next steps there is just having the architect do the details on all the engineering, the value-added engineering. We want to go back out to tender even in the next few weeks on that one, like by the end of the month, to get that back out to tender. But I've told the general this time that I want my office, to be much more involved in the tendering. So I want them to put their tender packages together, and then we're going to go and solicit people to bid on this and try and get as many local bids as possible on this. And if there's concerns from different people about why, we want to be able to meet with the general and them and see if we can get some of those concerns dealt with. But we did not get any local bids on the first tender, 0. Despite they said they reached out to a number of people. So I'm going to get involved on this one and talk to a number of people in town that can participate and see if that helps. It may or may not. I don't know. That'll come out in the pricing. But we're going to get more involved in the tender this time and see it.
Councilor Smith, you have a
Just a design question, back a bit. It's not very pretty from the front. Is there going to be patios on the other side of that glass and attractive things?
It's just a picture. It's not what
So
it
on the
looks like.
south, and I don't even know which direction to go here. Let me go here just to give some idea when that comes up, counselor. So
Going.
there we go. Okay.
Yeah.
So up in this case is south. Okay, so on this drawing, up is south. So on the south side of that building, on the outside of that glass wall, is a patio that also has glass around the patio. And then we have a lot of cement patio around both the east and the north sides. So there'll be able to be some of sidewalk and concrete patio on grade around those sides as well. So Councillor Kenley will know this as well as anybody around the table. We started with, what does an agricultural building look like? Because it was what we could potentially afford. And then they said, well, we can do some unique things with your roof, and we can do some unique things with, a few of those things to make it look a little better. One of the challenges that I'm not crazy about aesthetically, but it's going to be a bit of the necessity, is you're going to pull into that golf course and you're going to see the west side of the building, the west face of the building, which is the back of the kitchen.
Mhm.
So you don't want big windows. You don't want a bunch of that in the back of the kitchen. And we had to find a place to put the air handlers, the air conditioning, and all that. And it is going to be on that west side, which isn't that aesthetically pleasing, but functionally it's where they needed to go. So we're going to have to get creative on how we cover that up a little bit, and how the landscaping and gardening and that kind of thing helps to cover some of that. Because if we didn't put them there, we have to put them on the roof, and now we exacerbate the roof load problems because we're setting this massively big equipment that's catching the wind and sitting on the roof. Avoid that to some degree too.
You like gardening, don't you, Councillor?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So
I like the looks of garden.
I do think that we have a reasonably decent aesthetic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Looks better now that I understand.
So yeah, and it'll just take a little bit of work on that too. So there's what I wanted to show you on the clubhouse. I'm hoping that we're just a couple of weeks away from going back out to tender, and we should know a number by 1st of March. Would be the hope, and go from there. On both of these projects for you new counselors, and I don't think we did talk about this. No, we did in December. So you do have borrowing bylaws in place for $8 million for the wastewater plant, plus a $4 million operating line of credit for the plant. And you have a $1.5 million loan bylaw in place for the golf course. Now, we haven't tapped into any of those. We're not using any of the balances, but those borrowing instruments are in place currently.
All right, any other questions about the golf clubhouse? I think I can speak for council. I appreciate the hours and hours and hours that our administration and you have to put in on both this and on the wastewater plant. And nothing gets done unless it's being pushed hard. And we've been a long time on the golf clubhouse. I know that. Now I hope we're starting to see it come to fruition finally.
You got one more term after this, right? Just in
No,
case.
I've not had another job. It's gonna be done before that. It will be done before that.
Yeah. So the last one before Jill gets back here with dinners, I just want to talk about the Main Street revitalization study that was done. Now this was, sorry, Mayor.
No, you finish, but I have a question.
This was a very comprehensive study that we're gonna have to have some talk with you guys to decide what our priorities are in it. But I just wanted to touch on, that was the 407 pages that project that I uploaded. Sorry about that. I'm going to talk about 8 of those pages with you, 7 of them. This was a comprehensive review, and there was a number of disciplines that were reviewed in this. So I just want to rattle off really quickly. There was geotechnical evaluation done, crime prevention through environmental design, utility investigation, including water, wastewater, and storm, new topographical surveys, traffic analysis, roadway design, pedestrian safety, lighting, and traffic signals. So all those things were looked at as part of this. And this is intended to be, ultimately, if money was no object, what would we do to increase all of those components in Main Street? Now, there's a couple of pressing things that you deal with politically, like stormwater management problems on Main Street. Those are the things you hear, and they're legitimate things, by the way. And so we wanted to make sure that this was looking at that. We know that we have pedestrian safety concerns in the downtown. We have angle parking and crosswalks next to each other. So you get to walk all the way back behind that F-250 door, and you're 15 feet into traffic before you can see what's coming. Those are not ideal. Now, knock on wood, it hasn't been a major issue, but things like collisions and traffic accident frequency were all examined through this, and there was some recommendations made, some that were, I think, good, some in the early stages that just weren't. They weren't going to get public support, like parallel parking, for example, which is what transportation wants as a first option. It is factually safer. The fact of the matter is you don't have people backing up all the time on Main Street, but now you have 1/3 of the parking stalls you had before in an already congested area. And so council at the time just had to say, we get it, we understand all that rationale, it's a hard no. Staying with angle parking. And so begrudgingly, that's where we had to work with transportation, and transportation also has a traffic circle first policy. And this is one that I hate to share this story because it speaks to the inefficiency of government sometimes, but this is the actual case. We got to this, we were meeting with transportation, we had about 8 of us in the room, and they said, well, we need you to do a feasibility study for all your intersections on Main Street for traffic. Yeah, I'm not the engineer in the room, but I said, I'm just gonna throw it out there that with the close proximity of all the buildings on Main Street, we don't have room to put traffic circles that can accommodate a Super B or a tour bus. There's not space. And they said, maybe, but you got to pay an engineer to do the feasibility study to tell us if there isn't room. So we paid an engineer to tell them that there wasn't sufficient room for traffic circles at our intersections on Main Street so that we could move on because they have a traffic circle first policy. So there was a number of things that are very valuable that came from this exercise. Some of them make your heart sink just a little bit, but one of them was the opinion of probable costs. So to do all of the things recommended on
That's what I thought.
yeah, streetscaping. Well, and I think some of them, and Councillor Granger spoke to this before, that he thinks some of those categories are terribly low. And I think he's right, by the way. I think some of these categories are missing something. But when we look at streetscaping, pedestrian walkways and cross and traffic and safety and the utilities, we have roughly a $27 million touch on our hands here. Currently have $0.00 allocated towards this project. But I don't want that to sound terribly discouraging because this isn't an all or nothing proposal. It isn't that you do all 27 million or you do nothing, right? We can say next time we have a water line blowout on Main Street, what's the elevation plan for that ultimately? What's the size of it that's planned ultimately? And now we have a design that shows how we can do that incrementally as we go along. And there's value in that. That's a good thing. The other thing these types of studies do is we see this a lot around federal elections. So federal election comes around and all of a sudden there's quite a bit of grant money getting tossed around and we have a quote unquote shovel ready project. We've done the study. We can say, hey, we want to do the storm sewer portion of this right now, and we apply for these federal grants and we get $4 million and we can do that right away because we have a design. And that puts you a leg up when you get short notice, usually election timed grants. And so there's some value there for sure. Yep.
So I think it's important to understand during the election, our recent election, lots of people were talking about this, and I was hearing a lot of miscommunication in regards to why we decided to get the Main Street design to the engineering firm. Originally, it came to be because we needed help on our Main Street, and Bill Creed actually reached out to me and suggested that he had been to in Arizona and California and Utah, different places where the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints had put money into infrastructure and areas close to the temple. And so we brought that back to this the council of the day, and the council, and then I reached out to Elder Stewart at the time, who was our area authority, and said, what do we need to do in order to be good looking on this level? And he said to have this. And so that was originally why this all came to be. People were hearing that we were moving Main Street like a block or so, or I heard all sorts of things, and none of it's true. That was the original Councillor Court. You remember, that's why we started on this journey, and Councillor Kenley, is because, and all the things that Jeff just said. You know, we're looking at, we want to be shovel ready if money comes available, wherever that's from. But I think that's really important to say why we started down this road, why previous council spent the money we did to get us this engineer stamped report.
And it's done now, so we
Agreed.
can't.
I just think
money
it's
does show up,
important.
we can move
I
ahead on
agree.
some stuff like we were talking about.
Agreed.
There's probably no way we're gonna do all of the $27 million, but
Not
at least
today.
a start. Maybe it'll take 20 years to hit that spot, but anyhow, yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Johnson. go
Yeah, I
ahead.
was just gonna say that there are some ideas in here that we could probably do pretty easily with the beautification issues that they brought up, and the things that we can do in the back alleys to spruce them up and make them safer. I like those that wouldn't be that expensive.
Yeah, so the septet analysis was quite
Yeah.
thorough and gave us an indication of some of those low-hanging fruit pieces, right? And I do appreciate it for that.
Absolutely.
For sure.
I didn't hear you mention a landscape architect, but was there an architect involved in? There was.
Yeah, so there was a whole streetscape component
The
to it.
streetscape
Yes.
is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I just wanted to show you, again, this gets really cumbersome in a hurry. And you probably noticed when you opened it, it was like that wide because you have blueprints that are this wide later on. Sorry about that. I didn't think about the formatting on that one. Here. Not that one, 381. It did give us some good ideas as we... I have Zoom covering like half of my screen, so I'm trying to find, there we go. Okay. So the drawings were able to kind of take you down Main Street starting at CSL and going forward. And some of the unique things, I'll just use this first intersection, is where you see these dramatic changes to intersection crossings. And you can see what they call the big elephant ears that come out. So now, if you're needing to cross and where the crossing instruments are, you're behind parking. And you can see and you can be seen a lot better. And that continues down to 3rd, 4th Avenue and so on. All of them to be traffic control, there's no traffic circles in here as we got to pay to find out that wasn't gonna work. And so, you know, it is something, the other thing to note if you want to go through it sometime is it is extending the width of the sidewalk area and it is narrowing the width of the driving lanes. And they did that quite intentionally because, well, have any of you been downtown in the summer and get behind a wonderful tourist who's pretty sure they're on a 4-laner?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they pull up next to you and then you're like, guys, there's angle parking, you're gonna hit them across the street. And they just said, you have these exceptionally wide residential corridors. And so people think they're 4-lane. And so this narrowed it down a little bit. We did experiment with concepts like putting actually a raised meridian in the middle of Main Street, only to prevent J-turns. That has a lot of challenges when it comes to snow removal. They normally look good for about one winter, and then they're just really beat up. And so we went away from that. The RCMP liked that idea because of the J-turn issue, it would prevent that, but
So bad.
they just get beat up so quickly. So lots of good things like that. The one other thing, and I don't know if it's going to show up on this very well, but
I wouldn't mind having in the middle.
this map, and again, just conceptually, we don't need to look at anything specifically here, is just showing, there I just was all over the place, is just showing that utility mapping. And so we were able to go through all the intersections on Main Street and look at where's the water, where's the sanitary, what's the elevation of all the manholes, where's your storm. One of the big challenges, and I'm wondering, I just want to see if I can find this. It was kind of cool what they did here. One of the big challenges we had was how do we improve, yeah, this will show it here. This is a good one for it. How can we improve storm drainage? So the last two, I'll call them quasi floods. We've had about 4 businesses that have been flooded. It's been this perfect storm of let's hail,
Yeah.
and then let's rain, and let's take all the leaves off the trees during the hail portion, and then plug every outlet.
Yeah.
Like it couldn't have. There's almost nothing you can do to prevent that. You get that. Everything's leafed out, massive hail, then massive rain right behind it. Terrible scenario. So they were looking at, we can't readily raise the elevation of these buildings. That's pretty tough to do. They're connected to their neighbors, they just don't move. So if you decide to ever go through a lot of these drawings, what they propose is we drop the level of the road. So as we replace asphalt and as we replace utilities, we drop it all and we actually make it so those low spots on Main Street can hold way more water and that they would be lower than they are currently. So if these plans allow you to actually follow the whole Main Street and the whole elevation, and I'm not recommending you do it right now, but they'll show, I'll see if this next one has it, just a second here. When you do the cross sections, sorry, they show proposed changes to finished elevation. And that was very interesting to me because it's just, they were trying to have more capacity to hold water if those drains happen to plug up. And then they also looked at, and I'll have Brandon come and talk about this a little bit more, they looked at if we can change the elevations of the road, we can maybe direct that better so that it isn't popping over the curb as its first choice. It's going to go down and around and find its way into the creek if we can tweak elevations in some of those high spots. So I really did find that very interesting, looking at some of that work too. So for me, this is a project that I'd love to say, hey, we're going to take our dog and pony show on the road and we're going to find $35 million and do it next year. It's not happening. I don't mean to be a pessimist. It's just not happening. But I think this is a very valuable document for us as we start to look at when we have water and sewer mains that need replaced, and when we're looking at future sizes and elevations, and when we're looking at that, we have some guiding documentation now. Plus, we have something that's quasi shovel ready in the event we have some large infrastructure grants that maybe come our way, and we can pick a block, or we can pick a section, we can pick a discipline. You know, to your point, Mayor, I'm not sure that the LDS Church is particularly interested in replacing underground water infrastructure. I don't know that interests them very much, but they might be very interested in streetscape work. Right. They might be very interested in looking at that in the downtown core because we have one of the legacy temples in this community, and it's significant, historically significant in our country. Mm-hmm. And those are the kind of things they might be very interested in. So we still need to explore all that.
Agreed.
Because there may be components of that they say, yeah, when it's time for that, we're in. That's something we want to be involved in. So now we have third-party design evidence to take, and I think there's some value for that. So I just wanted to get everyone up to speed. This is done. It's finished. It's paid for. It's stamped. It's all that. And so we now have it as a reference document.
How long does a stamp last? Like, I'm saying, like, what, like 20 years down the road, is this still relevant?
Yep. Until you would materially change the design.
Okay.
That's what I would say.
Like an engineer stamp is good for till that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say unless, water or sewer infrastructure regulation changed dramatically, but otherwise I think we'd be good to go for relatively indefinite.
Certainly have a best before date.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good to know.
This goes along with Main Street, and maybe my mind's just not working with it. What did we decide on 4th Avenue and Main Street? We're going to put flashing lights up there
Yeah.
by the Freddies.
Yeah.
Well, so you've hit on an interesting question because Brandon and I talked about it yesterday. So we finally got those. They took like 8 months to get here, by the way.
Good.
So they are now assembled at the Public Works
Oh,
shop.
good.
We now have to apply to transportation to be able to put them up.
Yeah.
So Brandon's doing the drawings to submit the application, but we actually got into a bit of a thumb wrestle on this one because I said, yeah, I'm pretty sure
What side
the
are they
intent
putting
was
it
to
on?
go on the south side between Epic and South Country Inn for the junior high traffic. And Brandon said, well, I thought we were going to put them on the north side for all the high school traffic that comes down during the day and crosses over to go to Red Rooster.
That's what I thought,
And
because
I
the
thought-
building's blocking everything off right there.
That's
Right.
not what I thought.
Right, so we need to decide that before we put them up. So Brandon, he just hit me up yesterday and we got into a, again, very friendly disagreement on, well, wait a minute, my understanding was. that it was
Interesting.
going on the south side. He said, "Oh, mine was. It was going on the north side
Remember. I don't know.
because that noon hour traffic.
Whatever's best.
Well,
Whatever's
best
the
is a
safest.
relative term, right? We have to figure that out.
Yeah.
But whatever's the safest, right? Like I feel like if we ask the right people, RCMP, Brandon, this is not a this is bigger than
As a
that.
driver, I'd rather have it on the north side by Freddy's and, because you can't see people there. But we'll deal with that. Yeah.
I would like to make a motion for a 15-minute lunch break. Supper
If you
break.
want to see pictures of that last big flood, I've got a lot of them right here. So, did you ever see any of those, Jan?
Thanks. Actually.
Yes, that's
Oh
all.
my
Hold on,
gosh.
sorry. All in favor? Honor. Take a break there again.
Heck, but
Oh, yeah.
and we.
Myself and I had a nice little trip yesterday with Shem giving us all the details to it. There's a lot of stuff down there if you haven't been down there lately. So we'll let Jeff tell us what they're going to do with it.
Is that downstairs here?
Jeff gets to tell us.
That's good. Or we'll tell him whatever you like. I mean,
Make my job easier.
This is a great example of things that seem straightforward and then are painfully not. This whole thing is taking a tremendous amount of time, and it's just I don't want to say it's a waste of time, but you think that things are pretty straightforward, and then you make the mistake of checking the legislation and asking the questions, and then they become burdens. And so in our province, essentially, if the society wraps up and doesn't appropriately take care of what they have left, the province has a system in place by which they want that taken through. Now, that makes sense to me in a lot of cases. Let's say it's the mustard seed and they own massive real estate in our major centers in our cities. Well, that makes sense that you want someone to dispose of those assets properly because there's probably 7 figures of assets. You have a whole bunch of 2x4 props and costumes in this. While there's a reasonable amount of value there, the question is that really what the legislation was intended for when it comes to wrapping up society? Now, the other part of this that I'm struggling with a lot is that we have any number of societies operating in our community right now. There's probably a couple of dozen of them, and that both are dissolving or not, and it has never been a problem. The issue here is that the assets of one of those happen to reside in our facility. But otherwise, if another society in the community wrapped up, we would never be involved in the disposition of their assets and the wrapping up of their assets. It wouldn't be an issue for us. Just happen to house these. So previous councillors will remember that there was an effort by what I will call maybe the last remaining members of community theatre to try and assign a successor for their assets. The problem we had in the last council, had was they wanted to create an agreement whereby the town would temporarily take custody of all of those, we'll call them I guess we'll call them assets. I'm not sure they should call them that. We'll call them that. That the town should temporarily take responsibility, custodianship of all those, after which there would be other groups that would become the eventual custodians. The problem we had there was that community theatre as a society didn't exist. They had been struck long before this was attempted to be negotiated. And the group that was to be the custodian didn't exist. Don't legally exist as a So we were essentially trying to negotiate a contract between two groups that didn't exist. So it was something up in the ether that we were trying to negotiate. And ultimately just decided that we weren't going to get involved. That if that group wanted to work out something with the other group, and they could do so. So the previous council will also remember when it comes to actually, let's call them liquid assets of the society, the town, at least we were told, and I think it's right, took every last penny they had for rent that wasn't paid. Essentially came to us and said, here's what's left. Can we put it against what's outstanding and wash our hands and call it? Isn't a society with assets that we need to have someone assigned to dispose of and manage the money? The challenge with this one, and where it's made us a little bit nervous internally administratively, is I have a whole bunch of groups vying for those assets. And so we need to handle it as properly as possible in case there's some fallout from the handling of the disposition of the assets. We also have it further complicated, and maybe complicated is the wrong word. We have to be more conscientious too, because we have other groups in town that are saying some of the stuff in our basement is actually theirs, and it was on loan from them to community theatre, and they'd like to come get it back. Great. Well, I believe them completely. They're trustworthy people. We can't just open the doors and say whatever anyone thinks is yours, come and get it. I mean, so there's 2 pieces of legislation that we're trying to figure out what we should do here. So there, under the Societies Act, there's all manner of processes under their dissolution. Then the Business Corporations Act has other things related to the disposition of assets. The more we get into this, the more I want to rely on Section 610 of the MGA, which reads, and I didn't have it in your backgrounder, but 610 of the MGA says this: lost or unclaimed property coming into the possession of a municipality must be retained for at least 30 days from the date it comes into the possession of the municipality, unless it's unsafe, unsanitary, or perishable, in which case it may be disposed of at any time. If the property is not claimed within 30 days, it becomes the property of the municipality, and the municipality may dispose of the property by public auction or as council directs. So if we just had stuff in our basement and it wasn't attached to a society, this would be, we're gonna come up with how we're gonna get rid of it, and that's what we're looking at.
You got us an option.
So, that's kind of where right now I'm saying, you know what? We weren't part of this society. We did have a contractual relationship with them at one point in time. They rented that space from us to store those things. That's true. That society has been dissolved for upwards of almost 2 years now. There isn't another group that has, I would say, legal standing. So Shem's been doing a lot of work on this and hitting his head against the wall with frustration. Again, you almost regret asking the right questions in the first place. And we're almost feeling like, look, we're a municipality. We're governed by the MGA. The MGA says that if we have items that we consider to be lost or unclaimed, we can choose what to do with them.
I think what's complicating this a little bit is these societies, wannabe societies, believe they have kind of ownership of the civic center. And that's, to me, is not right. They don't own it. But that they seem to have that in their mind that if they take this over, they'll just start doing things there. Councillor Selk.
If I understand this correctly, Jeff, and Shem explained this yesterday, Community Theater Society was struck. It wasn't dissolved. The provincial government went, we no longer recognize you because you haven't done this, you haven't registered, you
Probably a
haven't.
filing issue, yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
you're done and we're just straight. So I thought that the assets belong to the Crown, which is the province. So we could say to the Crown, can you get your stuff out of our basement?
So that is the other side of it. What the different legislation pieces say is, well, the province is supposed to appoint a
Receiver.
receiver, thank you, and then they're going to come down and dispose of the assets, and they'll hold the cash, and then if anyone comes forward later that has claim, they take the cash. And again, that makes sense in when you have a society with substantial assets. We're talking about a bunch of costumes and props here. And is there a value? Of course there is.
But is it
But
sentimental or?
why would any receiver want to take this on when they couldn't even get their costs out by liquidating 100% of it?
Right. They will get nothing out of this. But, I mean, I guess I don't know, Jeff, is it the legal position of the town that we should be asking the Crown, saying, really nothing here. Do you want us to dispose of it on your behalf? And if that's the case, then maybe you throw open the doors and let whoever wants to have them and just get it out of the basement.
Problem is, there's more than one person who wants it.
I know, but it's like, you know what? You guys get in the ring and you fight it out.
Well, yeah.
But if they're not a society already, why would they even have any claim to that at all?
Right.
There.
So I 100% agree with what Councillor Selk said. That is my question is have we asked our lawyer his thoughts on this?
Yeah, so I'm not going to discuss that in public.
That's fair.
So yes.
Okay, but we have
I would
asked.
say generally that because the value of this is generally low, the associated risk is correspondingly low.
Okay.
Let's put it that way.
Okay,
We can talk about that in more detail.
that's
So-
fine. I just
Yeah.
the fact. So if I can,
Sure.
Councillor. So part B, I would say I definitely think it is responsible for if the carriage house has said that that stuff was borrowed. You know, I wouldn't disagree that it was borrowed and that they should receive their props back, whatever that is. I had no problem with that. As far as the rest of it goes, you know, I kind of like what Councillor Selk said, surprisingly, is that, you know, asking, who did you say, the Crown to, you know, you've got 30 days, come get it. If you don't get it, then we're doing something else. Then the town will move forward with it.
Does the carriage house theater know what they've got down there? Have they got a list?
Yes, they do.
That's easy then.
Well,
I guess we would have to say
how
what
easy is
that
it?
we trust them, yeah.
We do. I mean, I 100%. Why would they? Yeah.
Oh, go, sorry.
I just think
Lucas, use hands up here.
in order to mitigate risk, this less than substantial amount, a letter like that to the Crown at least shows that we've done our part.
Agreed.
And so then we have the more latitude as to what we can do.
So, Mr. Chair, we have sent in some of those emails, and we usually get sent on a strange wild goose chase with them. But I think you're going down the right road here to say, look, we'll show we did our due diligence. We gave the province the opportunity to come in and deal with it how they want. If they choose not to, we're going to declare it that it's just been lost and unclaimed. And
Councillor Winder. Go ahead.
Jeff, do we just? So I see the letters. Do we have just two main groups plus the Carriage House Theater that really want this stuff?
so you've got the letter from the soon to be, I'll call them Westwood Entertainment Group. They're not formalized at all right now. You had a delegation of Rebecca Burnham and Jerry Charger.
Yeah.
They came and didn't explicitly suggest it was theirs, but said they'd like to be the theater kind of group and use the asset of the facility and those things. You've got the high school and the junior high who have both recently been using it because it's in the building and using it for their productions as well that would be interested. And then you have Carriage House Theater who both believe, and I agree probably, that they have items there and might be interested in the rest as well. So there's a number of parties here. I'll throw one other thing out just for complication's sake, is that what Shem was finding is under the Act, the community theater has a certain amount of time that they can re-establish themselves and stake a claim to their assets they had before. But I don't personally, this is not a lawyer speaking, I don't think it's reasonable that we just hold that stuff until they decide if that's the case. Like, I don't think that's a reasonable expectation on us.
Yeah, go ahead.
But I also remember, and the two of you remember, that when it came to council, previous council, in regards to, it was essentially like Jeff had said earlier, we have X amount of dollars in the bank account. We owe the town more than that. It was, they just said essentially, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it was essentially,
We'll wash your hands of it.
yes, we're giving you the cash that we have left in the bank, and the town will just absolve us of the past debt. But one could say we are owed funds, and could go towards that debt.
There's a lot of miscommunication out there. We're being accused of impounding it. I really don't even know what
That's
that
ridiculous.
means. But
Yeah.
we just kind of inherited it
I was
here and
going to
there.
ask to that, Jeff, in that meeting, did we not say we would hold I thought there was something about wash our hands, but we would hold your items until a date or something.
So yes and no. So the request was that we would hold that over until Westwood Entertainment was in a position that they could take it all over and be the new kind of community theater. But we never did that agreement because there was no entity on either side of that to enter into agreement.
But it was just said, but it wasn't agreed
Yeah, it was
upon.
like hypothetically, this is what we can
But
do.
I always thought there was something that we did talk about it, but it never.
And you might remember Councillor Burton saying,
That's
Yeah.
right.
Who are we
Agreeing
agreeing with?
That's right.
Okay.
The society that's been struck.
So there is
One
no
that doesn't
agreement.
exist.
There is
That's
no
right.
agreement for us to keep this.
That's right.
No, the one doesn't still have an agreement. They're
No.
not an
Okay.
entity.
Yes.
Councillor Selk.
And even if community theater were to try to resurrect themselves, it would be a little complicated in terms of the province acknowledging them as a society anymore, because that whole thing played out very well.
One of the things if you want to look at it, another way we were discussing it in the office was we do have a basement full of relevant and interesting things that support community theater. It's been a collection of, since I don't know how many years, but it's been a collection over a number of decades of things that are used again and again. And we just saw our high school use it for their production, and there is some value for those in that business, in that art. And, maybe the town simply takes possession of it and we let any group that wishes to be doing theater to use it in perpetuity. maybe that's something that we have as a resource for theater groups going on.
But the
If
purpose
Carriage
is to not
House
have
needs
it
it,
here.
fine. If Westman Entertainment needs it, fine. If the high school needs it, fine. We have an inventory of things that could be used for the
Right.
future.
Go ahead, Paula.
But are you really telling me that the town needs one more dang thing to be over and sign out? And do you know what I mean? Like, that just is mind blowing to me. So now, because whenever I rent a costume from the Carriage House Theater, you have to get a dry clean and you sign it out and you pay and whatever it is for a Halloween party. Does the town do we really want to be in charge of that? I would say
We could
no,
put that
thank
on the
you.
mayor's bill sheet.
I think each counselor can take a segment of the assets
Thank you.
and sign them in and out.
Right?
I'll take the top hats.
Yeah, you will. The canes.
So how do we solve this? Let's
So what
get
I'm
down to
hearing
that.
is let us get something formal to and from the province on this matter, saying, look,
Agreed.
it's been abandoned here now for 2 years. And if we don't have a response that you're appointing a receiver in the next 60 days, we're acting under Section 610 of the MGA.
Yep.
And if we don't hear back from you, we're going to act under Section 610 of the MGA. Right. And we're going to dispose. So is everyone fairly comfortable?
I would say 30 days, not
Yeah.
60.
On a bigger scale, are we going to discuss this in our upcoming planning about the different assets in town and who can use, who can't use, et cetera? I'd like to see that
It's on the agenda.
it's on the agenda.
Yeah.
Okay.
When we make the agenda.
I mean, we said.
You're way ahead of me. I haven't seen the agenda yet, so.
Yeah, I actually had a call from Francosu today asking about if we wanted to partner on that gym again. And I said, give me till after the 20th.
Okay, so we'll just leave this where it's
Yeah,
at for now.
we'll get some formal. We've done a lot of emails. We'll get something very formal and see what response we get.
So we don't need to worry about the interest party letters, Taylor's, the same kind of thing, right?
Yeah, just wanted to be for your information that these different stakeholders are engaging on this.
Okay, any discussion on the Siksika Nation letter? Does that just let us know that they're out there and they'd love to meet with us?
Introduce themselves, yeah.
Yeah, that's nice.
The
Counselor?
minister, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Just on that, would it not be appropriate for council to send a letter of congratulatory to the new chief and council there? I mean, they've reached out to us. That's new and fantastic. I think it would be appropriate for us to send a letter on behalf of council.
Good idea.
So a motion to recommend to council to send a letter.
Can we do that during CC?
Yeah, you
Tell me.
recommend to council, then council has to ratify the motion.
Clearly, I just said I would like to make
You're
a
making that
motion.
recommendation there.
I am making the recommendation to send a letter to the new
so she can.
chief and council, Chief Samuel Crowfoot and his council, congratulating them on their new appointment. And we look forward to working with them.
All in favor? Okay, I just want a clarification that Jared just brought up. The mayor,
Me?
no, you're not the mayor right now because I was always under the impression that the mayor would not be able to make a motion, but then I've heard it differently.
You can.
That the mayor can make the motion.
I just had asked. I was like, is she allowed to do that?
Yes.
Even when the mayor's chairing a council meeting, the mayor can make.
See, I never
Because
knew that.
I
all
felt like
years
the
I've been sitting
previous
here.
one never did.
It was, she never felt
She
that
would
she wanted to
feel
make
she
it.
could.
Okay.
She felt to leave it there and,
Okay.
but you
That
would
makes
hear
sense.
her use language like, I'd like a motion on
Yeah.
this.
Okay.
I'd sure like to see a motion on that.
Okay,
That makes
So
sense.
I'll make a motion.
Yeah, yeah. No, you're
No,
good.
prohibited.
Okay.
all righty.
Thank you.
There's a letter from Minister Dan Williams telling us that we're not getting any more money for the sewer plant. Pretty
Well, it
much.
was if I might, that was a strange letter, and it was mixed up with a bunch of county issues and
Agreed.
town issues.
Agreed.
I mean, I appreciate the response, but it was very mixed up.
Right?
Yep.
It seems like he was telling us that he's looked under every bush and talked to every colleague that he has in cabinet to try and get us some more money, but that's not happening. So
That's kind
thanks for the letter. And no, it's
I think it's supposed to go to the county, but I appreciate my name on there.
I don't. It made I don't know. It was
Oh,
a
well.
dumb letter.
52%. Didn't you say 51% from the Alberta
Yeah,
Municipal?
I'll take his 52.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
We could go back on this and tell him.
Councilor Court.
Yes. Oh, sorry.
I think this is a response from when he visited us.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, so just saying I heard you.
Some of us were at that meeting and yeah. And a member from, or letter from Glenn Mott explaining Bill C9, which I think we should all be a little bit worried about if they push this through. If you're not familiar with Bill C9, that was the one that's the hate law, and it could impact on you using the Bible to quote something against whoever it might be. So that's something that we need to be aware of. Councillor Selk.
I would just suggest that we send a copy of Glenn Motz's letter and his contacts to the faith leaders in town, the state presidents, and whoever else, and say, you want to distribute this amongst your flocks.
Okay, so you're asking administration to do that?
Yeah.
Just a recommendation to council.
Okay, there's your recommendation.
Recommendation to council.
All right, all in favor?
Vote on it, yeah. Thank you.
Any opposed? All right, we're now moving into, yes,
I'll make a motion to go into closed session.
all in favor? Opposed? All right.